Hi everybody, it's Tim with Inflatable Office and Event Office, and I just want to welcome you to our latest webinar called Automating Your Business, Discovering True Power in Your I/O Account. And we're going to be dealing with filters and automations. So there's clearly some of you who do not have better things to do tonight, and you are here. I see you. You cannot hide. So your secret's out. Tonight, what I want to do here is spend some time going over automations and filters, and then I'm going to stop probably a little earlier than I would normally do in a webinar because I want to hear kind of what you guys are interested in the chat here. So comment on things that you would like to see, and we're going to stop probably a little early so that we can kind of go through some real world examples that you guys are interested in. I'm going to try to keep it to under an hour for a couple of reasons, mostly because I have something else to do. So I'm very honest. This was not, don't normally do webinars at 9 p.m. at night, so, but I'm glad that you guys are here, and I think we'll have a good time. So thanks for the cheerleading. I see you guys. So I could waste a bunch of time telling you why it's a good idea to automate your business, but I really don't think I need to. I think we would waste a lot of time if we did that. Clearly, automating your business is going to save you time, and time is money. There's really not much more to say about it. Whatever you can automate means that you don't have to worry about it. You don't have to do it. You don't have to think about it, hopefully, if you do it right. So there's a lot of things that you can do to automate your business, not just with us, with our software, but other things as well. And I hope you guys are pursuing those avenues. I know us as a company, we spent probably the last year and a half on doing that inside of our company because as we've grown, it's just been a lot. We've had a lot to do and not enough people to do it, and we want to be excellent. So we've had to do a ton of different things to automate our business personally. So, and hopefully those things have been good for you as well as us. So, but there's a lot of things you can automate with your I/O account, from logistics, like maybe alerts and reminders to somebody in your warehouse, to maybe alerts and reminders to a sales rep. Anybody in your company could get some sort of alert and reminder that's automated that you could set up in your Inflatable Office account. You can also automate marketing, like possibly some site submissions. So maybe people go to your website and they do something, and because of that, because of what they're doing, I'm just realizing my alerts are showing on the screen, but no big deal. Because of those people going there, they're going to send something in, let you know they're there, show their interest in something, and you could automate a lot of that reply to them to kind of try to generate more interest and get them to do what you want them to do, basically. You can do it for sales. You can make sure that your salespeople are following up with the right people at the right time. Because a lot of times we miss that. You could automate your payments if you want. That's something that you can only use if you're using global payments inside of Inflatable Office. But you can automate collecting deposits, or you can automate collecting your balance payments. So that's pretty cool. It's virtually unlimited what you can do. I know that I'm just going to scratch the surface of it because I don't live day to day in your world anymore. It's been a long time since I've done that. And you're going to come up with things that we're not even going to realize you can do. So be creative and try it out. I think you'll be very happy with what you can do through automations. So I'm going to switch over here to our automations page and kind of go through a little bit here on what this page looks like. A lot of you, if you've been here and you have a fairly new account, maybe in the last 6 months, 8 months, something like that, you'll probably notice that you have at least one automation. I think maybe 3 we put in there to start with. So you'll probably notice some automations in there that you can take a look at. I'm going to show you kind of what the different parts of this automation screen are. This is kind of the elementary part, but don't worry, this one's going to get a little deep because automations and filters are not elementary by any stretch of the imagination. So on the automation page here, you can put in the name of your automation, and that's just to kind of help you keep track of the automation. We have a user which some of you may know. He's kind of famous, Chad Burkholder, and he has a whole system of naming his automations so that he can easily find them and figure out what they are. So you might want to do something that's like, okay, this is a marketing automation, so maybe I'll put in marketing, and I'll say I'm actually doing an email out of that, and maybe some description of why when it triggers and stuff like that. So you may come up with some sort of system, which is probably a good idea, so that you can properly keep track of your stuff. We've added this description field too. I don't know if that was recent or not, but this is more space to kind of put in a little more detail on what this is, so that you remember when you look at it and you say, oh yeah, that's what that was for. This active mark over here, you can turn automations on and off. I suggest if you are doing one for a short period of time that you really do just go in and turn it off when you're finished with it, as opposed to leaving it run. If you set it up right, you could leave it run and it would probably be fine. But what you don't want to happen is that thing to trigger when you don't want it to. So it's not a bad idea to turn those off if they're like a short period when they're applicable. So next step in automations, after you do this simple stuff up here, is including your filters. And I'm not going to go into that too deep right now. I'm going to kind of pass right over that and go into actions. But basically, these filters are going to decide what we're triggering or what we're acting on. And you can say, I want to include anything in a certain filter, or you can say, I want to exclude anything in a certain filter. And you can add multiple of them. So you could say, I want to include this one, I want to include this one, but I want to exclude this one. And I didn't give you a very good example here because you have to keep them the same type. So this one here is actually a customer filter, so that probably wouldn't work very well. So you would say anything that collects in these, but if it's in this one, then we don't do it. So the last section here is the action section. Oh, and the other thing that's nice with this filters area here is we do show you the number of results that are affected by it. You should be able to click on this, and it should bring the lead screen up and apply those filters so that you can see what leads are actually affected. Now that works great for leads. If you're doing customer filters or other types, you're probably not going to get this to work, and I don't know, it probably still shows, but it's probably not going to work because we're really just doing that for the leads page. That's a great sanity check, so make sure you look at that and say, oh wow, I didn't realize 10,000 people are going to get this email. That doesn't seem right. I might have made a mistake on my filter. The next section is the action section. So this is what we're going to do once we have it trigger. Okay, so in the action section here we have a variety of actions, and I'm guessing over time you'll see this list grow, but right now it actually does quite a bit. So we have the charge card option, and again that's just for global users. We have the option to email out, so you can send out any email. You can text out if you're using iPhone. You can change the status of a lead. We kind of set that one as separate, but I would assume you could also set a field, so you could actually set the status field to something probably too. But setting a field means you can pretty much set almost any field, and that includes optional fields as well. These are primarily lead specific things. As far as setting a field goes, I'm not sure if we allow that on the customers, but I know that there are other things that as you start going away from leads, there's less and less you can do, and it's really more of an issue that there's less and less you would plan to do outside of that, and we just haven't accounted for it. It's not like it's impossible for us to do, but it's uncommon, and we just haven't got to that point. You can set things into maintenance, which is kind of like setting something on an inventory item. And then we have these two new ones down at the bottom here, which some of you, even the more experienced people here, might not realize what these are. Send data, which is kind of a neat one, where you could actually communicate with other APIs and send some data to them. We use this one specifically for Zapier integration. You can have certain triggers inside of Inflatable Office that will then kick off a Zap, which is pretty cool. We use this to send postcards out occasionally to people that we want to send a postcard to. So that's pretty neat to be able to do something like that. And we also have the ability to create a task. Now each one of these things is going to have different settings that you can do here. You can see charge card is balance, due or deposit. Email, you get to choose a template, you get to decide. There's technically a way to email a report, but I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know anyone that's ever tried it, and I really don't know if we got all the bugs worked out of that or not. So you can pick which email address you want it to go to. You can even put a specific email in or two. And the other nice thing about actions is once you add one, it'll let you add more. So you don't have to just do one action. And you can even create the template on the fly. If you don't have the email template already created, you can do it on the fly. One thing I wanted to mention about emails is if you're making them specifically for automation, you're not going to use them any other time, leave them inactive in your email center. It doesn't mean that the automation can't use it. It just means that it's not going to clog up your email bar up here. So all of the active emails are going to show in your email bar when you click in here, and you probably don't want those ones showing because it's really not important because they're just for the automation. So leave those inactive, and that'll take care of that part. Text messaging, you can choose a text message template. We don't actually allow you to specify a specific phrase here. You have to actually create a template. And then, of course, you can pick different numbers to send to. Status should be pretty obvious. Now, if you do change your statuses, you need to make sure you come back in here and change your automation. You can also set fields, as we discussed. It looks like you can set some contact fields, lead fields, some different things. Maintenance. Check things in and out of maintenance when certain things happen. Some people will use this if they're doing like they want to make sure that somebody goes over the equipment when it comes back. So they'll set it up to check the item out as soon as it goes out, and then someone will have to actually check it back in to make sure it's good to run again. So that's possible that way. When we're sending data, if you go and use this for Zapier, you probably won't even have to come in here and do this because we actually set it up really nicely in Zapier to create the automation for you. And Zapier will give us a link and it'll stick it in here, and all this will be filled in based on the questions that we ask you in Zapier. Now, if you're wanting to get real fancy, you can send data to any place that you want, and you can then process that data. So if you have somebody that you want to have program some different things for you, you could get them to set up a page, and you could throw that data at that page, and it could then process and do whatever it is that you want to do. So if anybody is displeased with the features that we have, if you want to make your own features, you are welcome to do that. And quite honestly, you could pretty easily, if you do a good job with those features, I wouldn't be surprised if you could tell the Inflatable Office and Event Office user group, and you might get someone to pay you to use that or something. So just a little throw that out there, because I'm not trying to keep all this to myself here. I'd love to see people build on top of our platform. I think that would be a lot of fun. So last thing here, creating a task. And creating a task looks probably a lot like our taskbar. This is only going to work if you use the CRM, okay? It might actually let you create a task, but you won't be able to get to it. So, and nothing will really happen. You have to be using our CRM module. So you can enter your task here. You can decide how you want the reminder to come up. And right now we don't allow you to set a different date for the reminder. It's just either you want a reminder or you don't, and you would use that date or not. So the current, it says use current date. That's the date that we trigger on this to create the task. And so the idea here is, yes, we don't give you the option to set a date, but you could set your filter up in a way that it actually creates it on the date that you want it to be kind of show up or be due. And I know that's a little bit unfortunate. It's perfect for procrastinators, right? Because the due date is going to show up and they're going to say, oh, I got to do it now. There's no procrastination. People who like to plan ahead, sorry about that. We're not there yet. It would take quite a bit of logic here to allow you to set a different date. So, but we're just not doing that yet. So, let's see here. You can set a status, and you can also do journal entry instead of a task. So if we switch to journal entry, it's just going to kind of put a note on that lead. And again, it'll do it. I think it does it for leads or customers for this. Yeah, it'll do lead or customer. So, but that's it. That's all this works for. So you can also assign one of your workers as well. So, or you can leave it unassigned if you want. Someone can get that task assigned to them, or you can just throw it in your box for someone to do. So, last thing I didn't mention this, and I'm going to go back up to this here. Let's see. I think it's all once per lead or once per customer for most of this stuff. And a lot of times what you're doing is sending an email. What this means is we're only going to do it either once per lead or once per customer. Now this is pretty important, and we actually made this mistake recently where we set it up to be once per lead, and we were keying off of a contact tag, and so any lead in our system that had the same customer on it, well, of course would have the same tag because the tag ties to the customer. So then every lead of that customer's ended up getting an email, which wasn't really what we wanted to happen. In that case, we wanted it to be once per customer. We didn't want to send one for every lead that they had in our system. So that was a bit of a mistake. So don't make the same mistake that I made. So you got to decide here if you want to do once per lead or once per customer. Now I know that in some cases you want it to do more often than once per lead. If it's something that is getting set, like maybe the status gets set when a certain action happens, possibly you would set the status back down because things weren't moving along with the customer, and later on you would hope that the customer does something that would then trigger that same automation and set the status back up. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, right now we're not allowing that to happen. It's not that we couldn't, but the problem there is that you could really have some pretty bad behavior. So you'd have to really, really do a good job of your automations and your filtering to make sure that you didn't get any sort of circular loops. And for us to check everybody's stuff and make sure that doesn't happen, it would be a lot. So we would have to program that in, and we just haven't taken that on yet. So at this point, if you want it to do it multiple times like that, you're going to have to create multiple automations and make sure that the first time it hits, only one is triggered and the other one specifically doesn't trigger, and then maybe later on the second one would trigger. So that's kind of how that works with the actions, and that's kind of a quick overview of this page. I guess there's one more section here, and that's the log. So if you come all the way down past we did the help before the log. That's kind of the only page we did that with. I'm not really sure why. I guess because the log can get long, but the log will show you kind of all the things that are happening from that automation. I think we do have a limit on how many we show at once, so you might not see everything there, but you'll see quite a bit. So the big thing here is there's two major parts here, right? There's the actions and the filters. Well, let me say before I go into that, I want to talk about one more thing here. So I'm going to leave this page. We're going to go back to this list. I'm going to show you a few things on this list because there are some unique things to this list. One is this little approved thing here. So anytime you create an automation, so as not to let you do something that you don't mean to do, we will actually review it. One of our support team will review it and make sure that it's a reasonable thing that you're trying to do before they mark it approved. Now, if you do this regularly and you become kind of an expert at it, there is a way for us to kind of open it up for you and let you kind of do work on your own automations without getting our approval. This is a safety feature for you. I know that if you create it and you make it active and you realize it's not working, it's because it's not approved yet. So I apologize for any delay that may happen. But it really is something that will protect you in the long run. So the other thing over here is the order. So as we thought through this whole idea of automations, order became important. Certain things need to happen before others. So you can actually set an order on this, and we run through these in order, and that may be important to you in what you're doing. So you might want to consider how you order your automations as you're building them. So, but this is kind of the crux of it. Is really the filters that triggers stuff, and the stuff that gets triggered are the actions. And I would say probably the hardest thing with building an automation is the filters. So we've kind of went through the actions pretty well here. So what I would like to do is kind of talk about filters for a little bit, and I'm going to kind of, if you're watching this and you don't care about automations, this would be great just to hear how filters work and kind of to understand them a little better. So I'm going to kind of go through filters here and hopefully explain it in a way that makes a lot of sense to you. So I found a picture of a tractor dumping dirt onto a fence that's at an angle. And if you look real close here, you're going to see that the bigger clumps of dirt and the rocks and the sticks and stuff are sitting to the left of that apparatus, and all of the fine, nice dirt is sitting directly under it. So this is a filter. And so if you think about your data as that dirt in that big bucket up there, it has different sizes, there's different things in there, and if you're trying to say, well, I don't want all of it, I just want certain things, I just want that good dirt, and I want to take that good dirt and do something with it, I want to take that good data, I want to take, it's probably all good data, but I want only specific things that I'm going to use that for. So if you think about this case, the dirt that's under that's really fine, that's going to be great dirt for some things, but it's not going to be good for other things, right? These clumps, these rocks, these sticks, whatever, that might be really good dirt for other applications. Maybe trying to fill in a big hole or something, whereas the others, the nice fine dirt you might be using for your landscaping. So both of them have, good things to them, but there are cases when you need to separate that stuff, just like your data. There's cases when you need to separate your data. And that's what filtering is really doing. So, we have a search bar there that basically does filtering for you. It just changes that list, changes that data set that you're working with. So think of a filter as that fence part. And that's what's determining, you're kind of determining what gets through. So when we throw all of your data at your filter, what happens? What comes through? What do you want to come through? And then what do we do with it? And one of the cool things, and we kind of talked about already, was in automations, you can not only choose what goes through the filter, but what doesn't go through the filter, right? So we would say if we include everything in this filter, we're saying we want everything that comes through that filter. If we say we're excluding anything in a filter, we're going to then say everything that comes through that filter, we want to do the opposite, right? So that's kind of the opposite thing. So we don't need to look at that picture anymore, although it's cool because I like tractors. I think they're fun. Let's go over here to the filters. I think hopefully that is a good explanation of what a filter is and what it does. It's really kind of simple when you think about it. So let's get now into maybe a little more of the complicated part on how to set it up, how it looks in our system, and how to really use these things. So when you're making a filter, first thing you got to do with a filter is name it. Again, naming your filter is important because you will end up with a bunch of filters and you won't remember what they're about. So make sure you choose a name that makes a lot of sense to you, that's very specific to what you're doing. That way later on you can figure out what it's for and use it appropriately. And you may use, one filter for many tasks. So when you're setting up a filter, the first thing you need to do really is choose the type of filter. And we let you filter on a lot of different things. Only some of them will work for automations. I think customer, lead, I'm pretty sure phone, texts, and I haven't really looked into the rest of these, but probably one or two other ones here will work. If you're interested in that, you could play around with that. Make a filter of one of these types and go to automations and see if you can find it in the filter box, and then you'll know for sure if it works. But generally you're going to be doing lead or customer for the most case. I would say lead is probably the most popular one. So when you're doing a lead filter, the first thing you need to do is you need to decide, well, what field are we going to kind of look at? So, is it going to be the status? This is a pretty common one. So if we were to pick lead status, so we would say maybe the lead status contains, let's see, contracted or whatever you want it to contain. You can do a number of things. You can say contain, doesn't contain, begins with, ends with, equals, doesn't equal. And a lot of these are dependent upon the field type, right? So if you choose a dollar value, so let's try that and just show you kind of some of the different options here. If we do a dollar value, you have equals, doesn't equal, begins with, greater than. So we have a lot of different options here. And then we can choose something like a date. So a date or a time. So if we choose the date or a time, we can put in a fixed range. We can put in a bunch of different options here as well. So lots of options to filter. And as you're building this filter here, we're also going to show you again the leads that are affected by it. Again, I think if you switch to customer view, it looks like maybe customers will work, but I'm not sure. Maybe all these work, but I would highly doubt it. But we'll see. Maybe it would. You can try it out if you want. But the intent here is to make this like a little easier by seeing like, okay, does this make sense? If I put in this range, am I getting the number of leads I would expect to get or not? So that's what that's for. You can click and you can view those leads, and you can kind of look at that and say, okay, well, why am I not getting the ones that I thought I would get, or why I'm, or whatever. Or maybe you would just look at them and say, man, I am good. I got everything I wanted to get. Yeah, so it doesn't happen to me too often. But so one of the other cool things about filters is that you can set them up to you can set up some really complicated filters. So we could say maybe, let's see here, if we have a zip code that, and doing a zip code filter is kind of tough because you're doing so many things. Maybe let's do a city filter, or maybe a state. Maybe we're working in one state and we see if the state is in Ohio, and let's say we're in Pennsylvania and we're saying, well, if the state's in Ohio, and the total, let's see, I think it's lead total, there we go. If the total is greater than $4,000, then we want to do something, because if we're in Pennsylvania and we get an actual lead that comes in from Ohio that's at least $4,000, well, we want to think about doing that. Maybe it's worth it. We have to travel quite a bit, but maybe it's worth it. We might have something trigger. If it's maybe we would say, well, you know what we really just want to do is we just want to say, like, if it's less than $4,000, we don't want to deal with it. We're going to have an automatic email go out and just say, hey guys, we love that you're interested, but we're not interested in, we can't help you because it's, you're just not spending enough. You could possibly have an email go to someone you work with in Ohio. Maybe you work out a deal with them that says, they're going to give you a percentage commission on these leads that you send them, and so maybe you start sending those leads over to that person in Ohio, and they do the work, and you trust them, and they actually pay you. So you could do that. The other thing you can do is, and now we're probably going to get a little bit weird here because I'm not really thinking through application as much as trying to show you what you can do with these different things. So let's just say, let's say the date of the event is in the next 25 days. So we can do something called adding groups. And so right here, if you know much about logic, if we were to do and then we wanted to do an or, it really wouldn't make sense. It would be hard for our system to understand what you're trying to do. Are you saying state and total or this? Or are you trying to say state and this or this? So we really don't know. So what we have to do is group things. So if you know like anything about math and order of operations, and you have to put parentheses around things so that make sure you evaluate those things first. And that's what grouping really does. So I hope I didn't lose you guys on that. But that's what grouping does. So now, if we were to split this up, we would say, okay, now it's very clear to us what you're trying to do. It has to be in Ohio and less than $4,000, or if it's in the next 25 days, we want it to apply. So it could be either or. So it may not be in Ohio, but if it's within 25 days, we're going to do XYZ. This obviously doesn't make sense as a filter that you could probably use, but you can. You can continue to add groups as much as you want in here. So the flexibility that we're giving you by letting you do groups, and of course you can change this now. And usually if you're doing an and, you wouldn't really want to do another group. So like setting that to and really, I could have kept it on the same group. But you can do that. Sometimes it's easier than rebuilding it. But the flexibility we give you by letting you do all of this complicated work in this filter and then letting you say that you can apply multiple filters and even have exclusionary filters really gives you the ability to zero in on exactly the leads that you want to zero in on. And that's super important. It's no big deal to have an email drafted up that goes out to somebody. It is a very big deal to make sure that email goes to the right person. Making the email takes a few seconds, right? What we're trying to do here is let you kind of put your brain down here in a filter, so that this works exactly the way it would if you looked at it and you were making these decisions, right? It would be really simple. You would look and you'd say, oh, it's in Ohio. Oh, it's less than $4,000. I'm going to send this email. So we're trying to let you kind of put your brain down here. And then we can kind of make those things happen for you without you having to actually take a look at it. So that's kind of a quick, but fairly exhaustive kind of review on filters. One of the other things I want to bring up with this is there's a way to do sharing these with different people. So right now I'm logged in as the admin. Most of the time you would be logged in as some worker account if you have workers, and you're going to actually do sharing. So we've added this new thing here where you can either use or use and edit. So it used to be that we were always basically defaulting to this use option, and that meant that when you shared something with someone, they could use it, but if they wanted to change it, it was going to make a copy of that filter, and it was going to, make that their version of the filter, and that way it doesn't affect you, right? Really good idea. However, one of the things we realized was when you're working on automations together, making a copy of a filter doesn't really work because now the changes that you made to the filter aren't present in the automation. They've actually changed. So in those cases, you really need it to actually edit that filter, unless you're going to go back and then into the automation and then switch the filter, which most people aren't going to think about doing. So basically the idea here is if you trust who you're sharing it with and you're thinking the same way, you're probably going to want to do use and edit. If you're making this specifically for an automation, you're probably going to want to do use and edit when you share it with that worker. And if you have a set of workers that you commonly use, you can say, I want to copy the same workers from another filter that I did, so that I don't have to add 17 people in here and set all our settings. So that's option is there too. So that's, I think, what you need to know about filters. And I don't want to go too long on some of this stuff, so I'm going to go into a couple examples of things that I thought of that you could do with automations that might actually be applicable to you guys. And we kind of covered a few things already, like sending out postcards through Zapier using our automations. I'm using ClickSend to send these postcards, and I think they charge me like, I don't know if it's like 60 cents or something a postcard. We design the postcard, and they print it and just fill in the name and address and send it out. And we put a QR code on it so that when people scan it, it takes them to our website, and it's kind of like full circle, and they fill in their information to maybe download something or get a promotion. And when they do that, that lead goes right into our system. And so we then can see that they're active. We can see that they got the postcard and they actually responded to it. So we can get an idea of how well the postcards are doing. I will say they're not doing great, but we're working on that. So I think there's something there. I think people are paying a little more attention to some of that mail these days because they're getting overwhelmed by electronic stuff. So, but it's a really cool system. And if you didn't know, like any form you build on an I/O website, and I can't really do that here from the demo site, I don't think very easily, but any form you build in Elementor, as long as you're using our plugin, those form fields are going to kind of map over into a lead in your system. So, when you build those, you can, and I have other videos out about how to do this. You can put a tag in there so that like it maps to a certain promotion, and that tag could be used in your filter so that you're, responding to those leads that come in an appropriate way. And it works really good. Now, if you're gonna do a filter on tags, and I'm getting a little off topic here, but I think it's worth it. Make sure when you do the tag filters, if we search for tags, the tag create date and time is really important, because if we're looking at a lead that comes in, it's going to tag the customer. Well, that customer could be on a lot of leads, and so that tag exists on all those leads, and you really don't know which lead it was that caused that to happen. And if we're going to send it, based on that lead, we kind of need to know. So if you look at the tag create date and time, you would say like it was created in the last, you could say last day, last hour. So you'd say last 2 hours or last day. Now, some people want to get their stuff to run really fast, and they think that if they do, let's see, the last 0.0005 hours, that's going to get it to run faster. That's not how it works. If we say in the last 2 hours, once it hits that, we're going to run it. So we're not going to wait 2 hours to run it. We're just going to say we'll look at any time in that last 2 hours and run it. And the reason why it's important not to go real short like that is because we run this every 5 minutes. And so if you're under the 5-minute mark, we're not going to catch it. There's a good chance of it. So you need to be higher than that, right? And additionally, based on server load, based on how many things we're doing for automations for your account, it could take a while, and so we would miss it. So what you want to have happen is if we miss it on one run, you want us to catch it on the next run, or catch it later that run. So that's why you don't want to make that too short of a time frame, or you're just going to have trouble getting it to work. So that doesn't make it go any faster by doing the lower value there. Also, if we were to happen to have server issues for a period of time, which we're really good about not having, but it does happen, and there are times when we have to turn off things like automations temporarily until we sort out other issues. You wouldn't want to miss those automations. So if it were me, I'd probably say last at least a day in most cases. At least, because that gives time for any of those weird things that might happen, so we don't miss anything that we really want to do. So, and again, that doesn't mean it's going to wait a day. It just means it will do it all the way up to a day. So, back to automations here. So let's talk through a couple examples here, and we may find ourselves back on the filters page in a minute, because, like I said, a lot of these things have to do with filters. But if you have a newer account, we do something that kind of creates pressure to make on the customer to kind of help you create that sale. And what it is we set it up so that your equipment is reserved when they, say they win a book and they're displayed a contract, and once they get to that status of contract, these are the defaults. Okay, so you can change these. A lot of people have. But these are the defaults, and the idea is that once they get to that contract status, what we want to do is start sending them messages saying if they haven't signed yet or paid, and I think in our case we did it just based on paying the deposit, and we say if they haven't paid the deposit after an hour, well then we want to send them an email and say, hey, you're going to lose your reserved items, we're going to release those, and if you don't pay soon. And then, we have another warning, I think, that does it later. And then at the end, like after 2 hours or 4 hours, whatever it is, we'll send one that says, hey, we actually release those things. And the system will. The system will release those. So that email will go out, and it'll set the status back to the quote status or a lower status so that the items are indeed released. And the whole idea is to kind of create a little bit of pressure for that customer to either contact you, make an arrangement with you, or do whatever they have to do to book that if they really want that stuff. So that's one thing you can do with automations. And like I said, by default in all new accounts, we have that set up. We think it's a good idea. Of course, you have to turn them on, I believe, because we don't write the content for you. So you would want to write your emails that need to go out, but we have placeholders for all of that stuff. So you go in there, you fill them in, and you turn them on, and that's all you have to do. There's also the ability to send an email to your warehouse manager or a text if you use iPhone a few days before maybe like your Rockwall is going out, and that way he can remember to check the tire pressure, make sure the Rockwall battery is charged so you don't have any issues. So that's kind of an example of a logistical thing that you might do. You can do the same sort of thing with maybe a cotton candy machine or something coming back that's going to need cleaned. You could have it email somebody and say, hey, this came back on this day, it needs cleaned, it's so that it's ready for the next event. And you could do it if you're using our CRM. You could have it actually create a task instead of an email, and so then you can see when they actually completed it, and they get the satisfaction of checking that off. Another thing you could do is, from a marketing perspective, is you could put a form on your website that just, and I'm sorry that this is not very dynamic, there's not a lot to show you on the screen right now, but you can put a form on your website for a PDF, like maybe a PDF download of a party planning guide, and so when they go there and they want to know what your party planning guide has in it because they're trying to come up with ideas, have them fill in their name, their phone number, maybe their email. I would do all three if you could, and then you could have an automation that actually sends the link out so that they can download the party planning guide. And if you're using a WordPress site of ours, this is really simple. You create a page in Elementor, you put a form on it, you tag it. You would use a hidden tag for a hidden field for the tag, and actually type in the tag that's going to be submitted. And like I said, you can find a video on how to do these forms. We've built one. It's on Facebook. It's on YouTube. I think it's in our knowledge base as well. But when they fill that in, it submits the lead, and your automation picks it up 5 minutes later at minimum, hopefully, and sends that link out, which they can then download the PDF from. And as far as the PDF, getting it up there, if you're using WordPress, again, you just upload the PDF. WordPress will have a place for it and a way to link to it. Pretty simple stuff. And of course, you can ask questions about that if you want. And if enough of you ask, we'll make a whole help document showing you how to do it as well. So you can also, and this is, I'm being a little cautious about saying this because some people have been asking for this, and we actually haven't tested it out yet on a live scenario, so I'm not really sure how it's going to work, but you can do auto replies to text messages for promotions and lead gathering. So possibly you print something on the side of your vehicle that says send fun time to this, text fun time to this phone number, and we'll send you back a coupon so that you can rent some of our great equipment, right? You could do that on a truck, you could do it on a business card, you could do it on a flyer, you could do it on a postcard that you're sending out through another automation if you wanted. And you could get people to send those texts in, and then when they do that, and we can kind of go ahead and look, like I said, I haven't built one of these yet, but I messed with it a little bit just before this. So what you would do here is you'd say the message text contains, and then whatever you want it to be. So if we said coupon me or whatever you want it to be, then we would have that trigger. And this is just looking at text messages, so these aren't leads. Okay, remember that they may not have a lead in your system. They may not be a customer yet. That's the hope, right? And so when that text message comes in, it's just going to reply with that information. I think it's going to be a once per customer situation where it's not going to do it to that phone number more than once. They're going to get one reply with whatever it is you want to send them, which is probably a coupon code. So that's something new that we kind of came up with, and I know it's a popular thing that places will do, text in some code and get this, and it might be a good idea to use something that's a little obscure, because someone could just be sending a random text to you and saying, I don't know what coupon me use, and end up getting something and thinking, well, what's going on? This doesn't make any sense. So you may want to make it a little bit obscure, so that people will not be confused by it. So anyway, that was kind of the last example that I had that I wanted to really show you. If we go over here to automations, I do want to. So this text one. Yeah, it's we still do lead or customer, so not really sure why we do lead or customer. I guess it depends on the filters you're using, but this is a text filter, so yeah, I'm not really sure why that would be like that. So again, this is pretty new, so I'm guessing there's a really good reason for this. I just don't know what it is right now, and I don't know that we have the help docs up for this yet, because we haven't really played with it too much in a live environment. So just be careful if you're going to play with that one. But if it's not working and you start messing with it, let us know, and we'll be sure to fix that as always. So anyway, I'm kind of finished with everything I wanted to go through on automations and filters, and I hope that it's been really useful to you. I see that my good friend Lee has been in here and responding to people. So maybe there's not a lot for me to go through, but I'm going to go ahead and look through it anyway here as best as I can. So let's see here. That was 22 minutes ago. I'm going to try to go in order here. So I'm going to start at the top. And it doesn't look like I'm getting all the comments here. So maybe let's see if I can get a different view. Or maybe you guys were just very chatty tonight, because I'm definitely not seeing all the comments. So let me see if I can pull a different view here on this event. And let's see here. I'm just going to open a private window, that way I can make sure that I'm not messing with the event here. So just give me a second, and we'll take a quick look here and see what you guys are interested in. All dependent on whether I can remember my Facebook login, and it doesn't look like I can. Let's try one more time. Alright, I guess I didn't remember it, but they sent me something, so hopefully we can get in. Well, that's not working very well here. So let's see. Who knew this would be the difficult part about doing a webinar? Clearly don't know my password. So I'm going to answer any of them that come in that I can see. And so if I don't get yours, or you did it early on, in a few minutes here, you might want to add it to the comments again, and we'll get it. So let's see here. It looks like my friend Greg is here. That's great to see you, Greg. And Lee, thanks so much for helping out. Let's see. It looks like you guys are helping each other. That's great. Someone asked how to send messages from the Inflatable Office app. That is coming. Sorry, we're really, really busy right now. We would love to have that out. It's been a huge push. It's not going to be that hard for us to do. We have some really cool plans for that. It's just haven't had the time to do it. So much coming in from you guys right now. Got everybody working hard, working extra. So we will get there. I promise that is going to happen this year. So let's see. You want a list of new customers in 2023. So this could be an automation. But you're talking more about filter, and again, automations usually ends up in the filter category. That's really what we're trying to do. This is Joshua. So anybody who's new this year, so we would probably go, this would be a customer filter, and we're going to look at like the create date and time of the customer, okay? And so we're going to say the create date was, we could say, a range. It was this year, right? So we could go January 1st through December 31st. And did I get it? Did something wrong. December. Yeah, I got it. Okay. So there we go. That's how you would get a list of customers that were new this year or any year. You could do it that way. Not too difficult to do. Now, I do want to mention one thing about this. We just added this in general preferences. So we have some customer settings now, which we didn't have before. So there are, we were very, very careful about overwriting your information and have always been. But what that can do is create a lot of duplicate customers because people don't put the same information in all the time. And we were checking quite a few fields and requiring that they all match. So we have opened this up to allow you guys to kind of do it the way you want it. I know for our account, we're only checking email these days because we just really don't want duplicates, and we assume that email is unique enough that we can do it that way. You might do email and organization. I know when we don't have the name entered, if they don't enter an organization, a lot of times we'll take their full name and push it into the organization field for you because it's easier to search and stuff like that. So that might work for you. Maybe you want to do email and customer phone number. This is going to look at the home and cell phone number. It'll check both of those. So you could do something like that, and then you would say we want to overwrite, or you can say keep. So either way, what this is going to do is this helps determine the match of a duplicate customer. And if you say keep existing, that means whatever they've entered in otherwise that doesn't match, we're not going to overwrite what you have. So if they make a typo on their office number, we're not going to overwrite it. If there's new information, we will overwrite an empty field if it's empty. And then, of course, you can say overwrite, which means I don't care what I had in there for the office number. If they enter a new number or make a typo, I just want to overwrite it because I'm going to trust that they won't do that. So that might be a good decision because if you're trying to get new people, we went through that filter there a minute ago. If you're creating duplicates, then our system thinks they're new, but they may not be new because they may already be in there. So I guess another way you could do it, if you're going to actually use that for, is you could say, contact create. Let's see. I got to switch this. We could say that the create time is in a certain time, and let's just do this real quick so that I can show you the other part here. And then maybe we have another thing that says, and, well, I'm trying to think here. Could we key off of... I don't know that there's going to be a really great way to do it other than making sure that you don't have duplicates, because that's going to be... There's really no good way otherwise. Possibly what you could do is go through your customers. We're doing this right now. We have a merge utility. And you can go through these and you can check and merge them pretty quickly and easily. It works really well. This isn't going to work great for I don't think it'll work great for this demo database. Oh, here we go. So we have a record. And it tries to sense what you want, and it'll check them, and you can go, no, I want this one instead, or whatever. And you can skip it if you don't want to deal with this one, or you can merge it. So that's a good option for you. I'm going to move on here to the next question if there are more here. Let's see. Looks like you guys were just talking amongst yourself and ignoring me, I think, the whole time, which is great. I'm just going to pretend that my audio wasn't working and that's why you were doing that. Please don't correct me. Could use the self-esteem boost here. Okay, Corey, he says, you mentioned the cotton candy machine. I'm looking to do something exactly like that, but maybe something that emails or text a list that shows what needs to be cleaned. Let's see here. How would we do that? Is it possible? So if you're going to send a list out, the thing that it makes me think of is you would need to do sending a report. The problem with that is it's, like I said, I don't know if anyone's actually tried it. And the other issue is I don't know that you would be able to have a filter applied to that report that sends. That would be my first attempt, would be to try to set up an automation that had a report and a filter applied to that report. So maybe the filter would say something like, we want any items in the category, concession. So if anything like that, and then we also want that the end date was in the last 7 days or something. We want those items in the report. If they're a concession and they just finished in the last 7 days, put that in the report. And so then on the report, we would come into the report and we would say that we want the rental's name, and we probably would want to do the organization so we know where it came from, and then we would probably do let's see, well, that might be it. Oh no, we would definitely want to put the end date, because if we're doing the last 7 days, we would want to know which day this occurred, because if it's running regularly, then we might see it on 2 reports and realize, oh, we already did that one because that was like 7 days ago, where this one is 1 day ago now. So I would probably try that to start with an automation, and then in your automation you would select email, and up here you would choose the report type, and then find that report and send it to whomever you wanted, probably a specific email address or a couple of them. I think you can separate by commas, and then you of course would do that once per lead. So I guess you wouldn't hope, well, if you're doing it once per lead, you're sending a report, I think you still would probably see things multiple times in a report potentially if it's running every day. So that you would want to kind of set up if you're doing 7 days, you'd maybe want this to, I guess maybe you'd want to set up your filter up here so that was also doing that 7 day thing, so that you didn't have stuff showing up multiple times. Outside of that, trying to think, is there another way to do a list like that? The only way to send it would be that way, I think, unfortunately, because any template is going to be specific to one lead, not to multiple. Now, if you want to get fancy, you could do the send data option. The send data, send it somewhere, and then have that, have it fill the item in. So it would be kind of like a live list. So a really good example, not to get Lee in trouble, but he does a lot of stuff with Zapier in our system, and he'll put stuff into Google Docs spreadsheets, Google Sheets. And so you could have it insert a line every time something needs to be cleaned, and maybe in that spreadsheet there's a cell that says, who did it, who cleaned it, and they type their name in. And so it wouldn't show up multiple times because it would just go in once. So you're not actually sending a report, but you're building one that's kind of electronic and easy for people to access, because Google Sheets is really easy to access on your phone. So that might be a better way to do it, to tell you the truth, as I'm kind of thinking it through. So that's probably the way I'd pursue it, and I think it'd be kind of cool. If you figure it out, you should share it with the group for sure. Let's see. Just Let It Out Reynolds, you're welcome. Absolutely. Happy to do this. I know we're running kind of to the end here on time, but I think I'm almost to the bottom of the list of the comments here, and so I'm going to try to finish this out here. How can I make a filter for Friday drop-off, Sunday morning pickup with separate pricing from weekday pricing? Can't seem to get it. New to I/O. Okay, filter for Friday. So this isn't really automations, but it's still filtering. Let's see. You want to filter for Friday drop-off and Sunday morning pickup with separate pricing on the weekday pricing. I don't do this very often here. Our support team does all the pricing stuff, so let's see. I think what we would do, so you want a different price from Friday through Sunday, and then a separate price from, I'm having a little trouble following here, from separate pricing from weekday pricing. Okay. So, what you would do is you would want to do, so it's all based on the day. So we're going to go day. So we're going to say lead start day of week is, if it starts on Friday, we want to trigger a certain pricing. So we might say if it starts on Friday, or if it also starts on, you get the idea. Start day of week. If it's on Saturday, so if any day on the weekend it occurs, we want to fall on a certain pricing thing. Otherwise, and then we would make a separate filter where we kind of did the other days. Now it sounds to me like you're trying to only rent from Friday to Sunday. So if they want it on Sunday, you say, nope, you got to take it Friday through Sunday. That gets a little problematic and difficult to manage, because I don't believe that there's a really good way to kind of enforce that from the checkout perspective. I know that we have some options with business hours where if you don't want to rent during the week, you can set that up. Or you can say, if you choose Saturday, it's going to say, nope, I won't allow it. You have to start on a Friday or Sunday. I think that you're going to turn a lot of people away and confuse a lot of people trying to do some of those things. So I don't know that I would recommend doing that. I know it may be really convenient for you, but you might run into some problems with that. Surely, doing the pricing different, weekend versus weekday, absolutely. And we actually might have something in here for weekend. Let's check that. So lead start is a weekend, so you can actually, that might make it a little bit easier. And then we might have weekday in here too. Let's see. Let's see. Yeah, we have weekday as well. So, and we have different options. So if you weekday, Monday through Friday, or Monday through Thursday, whatever you want to call it. So that makes it a little easier to set it up, and say, if it starts on a Monday through Friday, then we want to do a certain thing. And, also it has to end in that time. Then we want to price it a certain way. So once you figure out, the filter that works for you, then it's just in the conditional pricing on inventory. you would then apply those appropriately. So just real quick here, pick one and just show you how that looks real quick. So conditional pricing, if we go to pricing, most of the time you're looking at a single price. We show conditional. The way this works is you would set up kind of your base one, and that could be the weekend or the weekday, doesn't really matter. This is the one that's going to apply when we can't figure out what else to do. So if you kind of make a mistake on your filters, and so you might want to make the highest price up here, or maybe the lowest price. You don't want to scare people away. It's up to you. Then you would, and this is your all filter. So this is kind of like your base. So that would maybe be maybe I would do the weekend that way, and then I would set up my weekday to be different and do my discounts. So then I would come in here and type in my weekday. Oh, we actually have something in here like that. And these have to be pricing filters, just so you know. Otherwise, they won't show up in here. So you can see that little pricing filter type after that. Make sure you make it a pricing filter. And then you would set your price over here for the other scenario. And then override and stop, meaning that, we're going to check here. And this would obviously always apply, but then we're going to come down and check this one next. And if this one applies, we're going to stop. We're not going to keep checking more. If it applies, we'll stop. And that way you can order these the way you want. You can also do an add to price thing. So if if in reality you're only making it $50 more on the weekend, then you could just make a price that says $50 more. That kind of makes it a little easier for you to build your prices sometimes. And this is going to add that $50 to this base price up here. So for the all filter. Hopefully that helps. It can get kind of complicated doing some of that stuff. And like I said, the thing you want to really worry about with a lot of those things is, am I turning people away? It might be better to let those things come in and have some automations that say, hey, we only rent from Friday through Sunday. I know you want a Saturday, but this is a bonus. You're going to get extra time, and it's not much. It's no different in price, and really just sell it with that automation. That might be the way to go. And that way, you don't have people confused as to why they can't actually rent it on Saturday. So let's see here. Corey says, as you're doing this, I'm guessing I could run a filter and put everything in a completed status on water slides in the last 2 days. That must be the things you want to clean. You can do that. You can put a status on things that says, on a lead that will say like it has gone through inspection or been cleaned or whatever. A lot of people will do that. I kind of lean more toward optional fields on that. Maybe have every lead saying, have a little optional field that says water sides are cleaned. It's like a checkbox, potentially. That would work as well. Let's see. The best way to stop auto deposits, auto bookings without deposits. The best way to do that is to, we talked about it a little bit in the beginning where I said, the best way to do it is to put, and I'm assuming what you don't want to happen is you don't want these contracts out, you don't want these items of yours being reserved, is I would put a time limit on it like we're doing, and if your account doesn't have this option, you should contact us because we can help you do it. All our default ones do, where you send this to the customer saying, hey, you haven't made a deposit yet, and if you don't, we're going to release these items. So that's what I would do. I think there are other ways to do it by setting your statuses if you want. So you could go into your statuses, and you got to be careful in statuses. We give you a lot of freedom in here, but you can definitely hurt yourself. You could basically say that I'm not going to reserve anything in the contract status. This was pretty popular for a while. So leave this contract out to the customer so they can actually view it, which is good. You can uncheck that, and now it's not actually reserved. And then you would possibly not have this checked here. But in the confirmed, you would say the only way it gets to confirmed is if they pay the deposit. So I uncheck this. And the only way it would be if they paid the deposit, and so and it is reserved in this status. So that's one way to do it as well. But yeah, I think the pressure is better because you really want to try to get them to do it. So Casey, the new delivery planner. Man, we have been working really hard on it, but we just don't have the manpower we keep getting pulled off to fix other things or to make improvements for y'all. And it's hard in at this time of the year when everyone's pushing real hard on us to change things or do things. It's very, very hard for us to have the freedom to actually develop something big like that. So again, it is delayed, and we're barely getting any time on it. We're trying to, but we're barely getting any time. And it's such a big project that it's something that we need like a month of time on it, and it's just not happening. So hoping in this summer when you guys get busy and you kind of forget about us for a bit, we're hoping that we can finish that out. We will probably try to run it in tandem with the old one. I don't know yet. We'll see. A lot of times running stuff in tandem is very difficult because we have to account for both scenarios, and sometimes that becomes almost impossible to do. So it definitely makes it harder for us, that's for sure. Let's see here. And it looks like I might be to the bottom here of the list, so I think I am. It's good because it's getting late, and I want to let y'all go. Heck, you might have already left anyway. But I just want to thank you all for coming, for participating. If I missed your question, like I said, I had a little bit of trouble here seeing the comments. I'm not sure why Facebook won't allow me to see more than like 20 at a time. I'm just seeing the last 20, so I apologize for that. Hopefully Lee was able to help you. It looks like you guys helped each other a lot. Feel free to contact our support team if you have further questions about this. They'll be super happy that you do, because they probably don't have any idea on some of this stuff that they don't know what I was going over, and they'll kind of be like, why are we getting all these questions about this? And I'm going to say, well, it's my fault. So I'll have to make sure they're very well educated for all those questions. But feel free to ask them. They'll get the question over to me if they don't know, and I'll answer it for them. And I think this is just something that more people should use. It's a very powerful part of our product that you're not going to find in other products, and we give you a lot of freedom to do exactly what you need to do. Run your company the best way you can. There's definitely best practices, and we hope you guys share those amongst yourselves. But there are things that you should be doing to differentiate yourself. And you'll learn what those are, and you'll learn that they work, and that'll make you good, and that'll make you better than your competition, and that will help you achieve the goals in your business that you want to achieve. So thank you all, and good night.